and you're all very welcome to the final perform of the Spring Series for 2014, organised by Drama and Theatre Studies in association with the Triskel Development Centre. This season, as we know, our topic is theatre directors and adaptation, and so I'm delighted to welcome internationally acclaimed theatre director Laszlo Marton. Laszlo started directing in the 1970s. He has a long history of directing across Europe, Canada, the USA, and so on. He's also, at the moment, and has been for a long time, the artistic director of the famous Vixen as Theatre in Budapest. He is a teacher also in Budapest. He's a professor of acting at the Hungarian Academy of Dramatic Art. He's won numerous awards and has been honorary members of many societies and guilds, one of them being the London Guildhall School of Music and Drama, and also the Society of Stage Directors and Choreographers of USA. So he's worked across the world as a director. He's no stranger to Ireland. He directed both The Wild Duck for the Peacock Theatre and A Doll's House for the Abbey the Main Stage in the mid-2000s. He's going to talk today about directing Ibsen in our time, and he'll talk for about half an hour or so, and then afterwards join us for a glass of wine and a chat. So can you all please welcome Laszlo.
It was very nice to sit here and to listen nice things said about me. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I feel really honored and lucky to be here and to be a guest tonight. Most of all lucky because we picked up a subject for tonight to talk about Ibsen, who is one of my favorite writers. If I'm very honest, the two strongest and the most strongest influence on me as a director, there are Chekhov and Ibsen. So I learned a great deal from these two masters. I don't know, have you ever thought about the interesting thing? Chekhov came from literature into the theater, and Ibsen came from the theater into the literature. But they made an incredible change in the theater literature, and also in the theater, the style of the theater. I think this is one of the most important change in the history of drama, what they made in their own time. And unfortunately tonight I'm not able to talk about both. So maybe when I come back next time I could talk about a little bit more about Chekhov. But I think at the very beginning we have to think about a couple of facts which are so important, so I have to mention both. I think one of the reasons why this kind of theater was able to born is somehow in the air it was a need for a change in the theater. And for one of these reasons, young Russian actor directors, they come together and they discussed the future of the Russian theater. And these people, they came together. The most famous of these people is Stanislavski and Nemirovich Danchenko. But if you see the pictures of these two people, usually you see them, they're gray, they're having big beard. So we always thinking about them as very old people. But when they met, before they started the Art Theater of Moscow, they were very young. They were even younger than you are, when you are. They were as young as you are. So they were very, very young. They were in the middle of their 20s. And both of them, they were running to, how do you call it, alternative theater. so we, just before this discussion started, I talked to Esther, who is from Hungary, and who is running a small theater here. So these two guys, they were running an alternative theater too, and they were thinking about to unite the two companies. But uniting the company is a huge responsibility. So you could work together, and this is also my personal experience. So you could work together with the theater people, they believe in the same principles. So that's a very, very sensitive issue, to work together with somebody. So to test this, the two leaders, they came together in a coffee in Moscow, and they started discussing the principles of art and theater. And that was one of the longest discussions of the theater history. It took 16 hours. And after 16 hours, they came out and they said, yes, we are ready to unite the two companies. And that was actually theoretically how the Art Theater of Moscow born. The next step was they needed a material. They needed a play for starting the theater. And starting the theater, sometimes when I'm excited, I have to get up and after I'm going to sit back. So they were searching for the material, and somebody mentioned a play. That was The Seagull. And the playwright, that was Chekhov. And somebody suggested that would be the good material for us. But somebody said that was just a terrible flop recently in St. Petersburg. And Danchenko said, yes, it was a flop because they didn't know how to do it. So the company decided to read the material together. And that's what they did. And just think for a moment, and they decided to produce it again. Just think for a moment, after a big flop, for instance in Dublin, who is going to do the same play 2 months later? What an incredible challenge, what an incredible risk. And they took it. So that was the way how they started the Art Theater of Moscow. And the reason I'm talking about this, because now we are going to go back to Ibsen. Because the Art Theater of Moscow, as a theater, the way how they pick up the actors, how they choose the actors, that was completely different than the previous way of organizing the theater. So now we are thinking about something, the huge change of acting, the huge change about the personality of the actor. The 19th century actor, let's talk about the actor. The actor is big, has a huge voice, facing to the audience and performs. That's the 19th century actor. The 19th century actress, big, have a big voice, facing to the audience and perform. This is a completely new requirement. It's completely new thinking about the actor. They are starting thinking of the actors, seeing the people surrounding them, the people of real life, and they started searching for actors they could play the life and the fate and the problems of these people. So this is the revolution in the theater. And this is happening very interestingly in two different parts of the world. This is happening in Russia, and this is happening in Norway. And the other writer, who also writes a new way, another pioneer, another revolutionary, he also writes about the problem and the life of people they surrounding him. So I told Ibsen is coming. Yes, he's coming from the theater. He has a very interesting theater background as a very young person. He's already works in Bergen. I'm not going to tell you biography details because you go and you Google in the internet and you are going to know everything much better than I do. I'm not very good about the dates. But the fact is, so he started in Bergen, he worked for the theater, he worked for another company, it's not a gossip, but he had several love affairs with the actresses, which was very, very important school for his writing, because one of the reasons he writes with such a tenderness, with such a talent about women, is completely new in the literature. So this is something again. And the other thing, what we are going to talk about this later, his incredible touch to the theater. That's something what he feels so strongly, so what's happening on the stage. He is one of the very first writers who you could feel the chemistry between actors is a very big must in Ibsen. Otherwise, you can't act in an Ibsen play. So he goes through all different theaters. He runs also one company, also he bankrupts another company as all lessons. And after, and this is again a very interesting question, I don't know, have you ever thought about it? He was 36 when he left Norway, and practically he never returned. He returned when he was 70 and he was celebrated. He escaped back to Italy, but most of his life he lived in other countries. Is it familiar for you? Is it not like Irish, great Irish writers? So I think that's something very interesting about it. And when we are going to talk about Ibsen as a writer, sometimes I feel he is very Hungarian. When I worked on Ibsen here in this country, I felt it's very, very Irish. So I think this is something which is universal, but I don't mean it on an elegant way. It's universal because it's about us. So, at the very beginning, what I tried to suggest is, so it was a big change in the theater, in the thinking about the theater, thinking about actors, thinking about acting. A lot of things was brand new in the rehearsal process. So the first time the actors and actresses, they were asked what happened before, why, how are the circumstances here, what's happening outside. So you can't produce or you can't act in Nora, so you have to think about when first time she appears, it's Christmas. The whole town is celebrating Christmas. Outside is snow, and outside is Christmas madness. So she comes home from a lot of parcels, but she brings home for her children. So this is also, if you think about it, this is new in writing. So if you think about Racine, Shakespeare, I love all of them, I respect all of them, but there is nothing like this previously. So this is a new, different portrait of the human being, and this is so exciting. Because we are going to have a very limited time tonight, so I decided I'm just going to talk about two of my favorites out of Ibsen. So when my friend Sasha invited me back, I could talk about other plays next time. So I decided we are talking tonight about The Doll's House and White Duck. If I'm very honest, this is very much probably the two favorites. There are two other favorites, but these two maybe, these are the two favorites. So let's start with The Doll's House. let's think a little bit about the history of the Dollhouse interpretation before we sink into the play and before we analyze a little bit of thinking about the play together. So they produced the Dollhouse. It was the very first production of Dollhouse, which Ibsen really hated, and it was a second production of Dollhouse. And that was probably the most unlucky thing in the history of this play. The second production of Dollhouse, the daughter of Karl Marx played Nora. G.B. Schlow played Krogstad. Have you heard about this? That's a very interesting cast. And also a few, how can I say, politically active, liberal, little bit lefty people. They took part of the production. And the problem with this and the response to this evening of performance is it put a stigma on the play. So it made the play the most famous feminist play of the literature. So after the poor play was not allowed to perform anymore as it was written, it became the kind of political manifesto which, as always, and this is true about every play, starts narrowing the possibilities of the actors, of the actresses, and the poor directors. So that was the history of the Dollhouse for a long time, and any time they wanted to, and the other thing is the famous role. The famous role is also a fatal thing for a play, for a good play. So when the theater would like to give a role for the famous actress, that's always a little bit problematic from artistic side, not from the box office side. So this is like the deciding factor for a long time for Nora. At the beginning of, or the end of 60s, the beginning of 70s, it started a new thinking about Ibsen. One of the biggest pioneer of this thinking was Ingmar Bergman, the great Swedish director. Ingmar himself was an incredibly interesting thinker, and anybody who has seen his films, his movies, so could see we are talking about one of the greatest masters of the recent theater history. And also he had an incredible capacity to read and to analyze the play again with a fresh eye, through a new lens. So that's what he did with several of the great Ibsen's plays. So he himself, he directed the Dollhouse. Several times he directed it back in Sweden for the Svenska, and also he directed later for the Residence Theater in München. And it was two different casts, two different productions, but there it was like giving the invention for all other theater people to start thinking about Ibsen as a fresh, contemporary writer. So that was a huge push for everybody who is in the theater world. And this is the thing which is started. And one of the reasons, if you read the Dollhouse, as you read it like you never heard about it, you never heard any political discussion about it, you just read it as a play, as a text. And first of all, what you are going to realize, this incredible contemporary, exciting touch of the whole play. So this play is about marriage. This play is about relationship. This play is about how people, they could live together. They live together and they call this marriage. They have 3 children. and actually they never communicate. So this is such an interesting thing. This is such an exciting topic. And right away, as we read the play and we are penetrating in the play, we start realizing, yes, this is a play about us. This is like me and my wife or my girlfriend, or this is, if you are very careful, you say this is like my best friend and my best friend's husband. but you start understanding this is something very special, very deep, and incredibly, cruelly, tastefully written. So the two leading characters of the Doors house is Nora and Torvald. Once I was teaching the Doors house, and I asked my students, my actresses, please put a red sign into the script all the time when she lies. 96 times. It's quite something. But she never lies. She never lies to gain something, for profit, or to get something. She just lies because she just lies. So she comes home, she has a piece of chocolate, macaroons in her mouth, and the very first line of her, she never visited the pastry shop. So there is no, she just, that's her. That's her. And this is, later you're going to realize what a brilliant thing is this from Ibsen's point of view. In later, step by step, you are learning something about this woman. I love her. I love her as a human being. I think she is absolutely, incredibly fantastic. Because she has a completely double life. She is like Mr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. She has two lives. One life is this. The little bird who is not good with money, who is educating the children, who is not very clever, whose husband is a genius. And this is one life. The other life is long time ago, 8 years ago. 8 years is a long time in a marriage. 8 years ago, she borrowed money to save her wife's husband. She did it secretly. She committed forgery to save this guy. And for 8 years, she puts all pennies all together every single day to be able to pay this back. To pay this back. And nobody knows her secret. So just imagine in a marriage, in a relationship, sleeping, waking up, doing everything, and never mentioning this incredible burden. So that's something which is so exciting, I think, from Ibsen's point of view. So imagine her loneliness, imagine her tension, and she never talks about it. The other hero of the play is the husband. So from outside, so if we see these two people, these are the people, they appear on magazines, they're beautiful, they look good. He is the new appointed head of the bank. He's a very good-looking guy, even has a sex appeal, so he's charming. She is beautiful. They have 3 children. So it's all beautiful like a picture. So this is the surface. And the inside is, she has a secret for 8 years, and she never dared to mention the thing what she committed. So I think this is something which makes the play artistically so interesting and so challenging, and this is of course which makes the challenge for the actors so exciting. So this is her, and otherwise Torvald is. So first of all, we have to be honest. Torvald is the guy. The society needs Torvalds. The society needs this trustable, wonderful workforce. This good-looking guy who is, even on Christmas Day, he goes to the bank, he makes everything ready. It's an incredible guy. So if I were IBM, I would like to get this guy right away to work for me, because this guy is perfect. It's perfect. But the interesting thing is, so the gap is the most interesting thing is, and this is which makes the play so exciting for us. So this is like a play which was written today. So the nature of the relationship is so exciting. So so how the people, they carry on something what they call marriage or what they call relationship, and somehow they don't talk about the most important things. And this is which is so brilliantly written in the play, and also there is also something which I has always admired. I just wanted to share with you. In a certain moment of the play, the three children arrive, and Nora has a scene. She's playing with the children. I've seen recently this play several times, and the funny thing is, usually they cut the scene of the children, and we all know why they cut it. They cut it because the producer comes and they said, "Laszlo, this is so expensive to have three children, please. And we need somebody, a nanny, who takes care of the children. This is another money, so could you just cut? This is a short scene, why don't you cut it?" So, and most of the theaters, they go and they cut the scene, strictly artistically. So the reason why he brings on the children is because you remember in the Magic Flute, in Mozart's Magic Flute, there are three children, three boys in Magic Flute. They lead Tamino through all the problems. So they come and they lead him. The reason, because Mozart wanted to, to create a different dimension in the opera. So he wanted to open up something, and therefore he used something which is the most special thing, the voice of a child. So in the doll's house, so when the three children, they arrive and they play with Nora, so we feel this thing, the dimension is opening up, and the reason we need this dimension, because now we have to realize the incredible responsibility of these two people for the children. So this is not a game. This is, so the risk is high here, because we are talking about the present and the future of the three innocent boy, the three innocent child here. So he's using something artistically so exciting, what Mozart is using in the Magic Flute. So we have to understand the risk is tremendous. And also there are two other characters, a few other characters in the play, which I'm just very, very briefly. So there is a guy who is Krogstad, who is Torvald's childhood friend, who is usually portrayed like an evil person. He's, in my mind, absolutely not evil. He's just somebody who lost ground. So the interesting thing is, so the society needs the Torvald type. The society doesn't like this strange dreamer, little bit, he likes drinks, he likes dreams, he doesn't like reality. So this is not what the bank likes. My goodness. So there is an incredible scene of the play when he's really drunk and he starts shouting, it's going to be one day when he's going to give me the bank and I'm going to run the whole Svenska bank. That's what he said. So I said, oh, if he runs the bank, I have to go back, I have to take out all my money because his bank is going to collapse. Because he's simply somebody who is not for this target-oriented, how to say, drivers. He's just simply different. And one of the reasons, and this is again artistically so brilliant, this is the reason why Nora understands him and he understands Nora beautifully. There is a magical scene in the play when the two of them, when he comes and he wants to blackmail her, he's a terrible blackmailer, but he tries 3 times, which is absolutely crazily funny. And it doesn't work because he's not a very good blackmailer. and there is a brilliant scene when suddenly this guy, the Krogstad, the dreamer, the alcoholic, starts feeling this Nora wants to commit suicide. This woman is under pressure. And the interesting thing, previously we have a scene with the husband. After we have a scene in the husband, the husband, Torvald, doesn't feel anything. So Torvald doesn't have the ability to look somebody's face, and he's not able to ask, what's wrong? Krogstad absolutely has this ability. This strange guy, the visitor, comes in, and in seconds later he says, what's wrong with you? You want to commit suicide? And she's honest to him. She said, yes. As I'm talking, I just wanted to mention something which is, I think, is something you should be so proud on. You know, absolutely the best translations, adaptation of Ibsen is all Frank McGuinness. Absolutely the best. So if you read, there are several of them. He completely started something new of translating Ibsen. It's brand new. First of all, he understands this playwright so devilishly well. He has this ability to understand what is on the page and what is behind the lines. And the other thing is, Ibsen has a very strange, a very devilish sense of humor. So very exciting thing about Doll's House or Waidak is sometimes the scenes are hilarious, and after they break your heart. And so you need a very special translator to translate this ability of the original play. And Frank McGuinness' text is absolutely fabulous. So this is something which is, I think, every Irish could be very proud on. So this is just a little note. So that's what I thought about Krogstad. And the other thing, which is another favorite theme in the play, do you remember why Torvald wants to fire him, Krogstad, from the bank? That's so brilliantly funny. He wants to fire him because they were in the same class in the school. So they were absolutely in the same class in the school. So he wants to fire him because this guy remembers him as a student. He remembers him as somebody else. So you remember, isn't it brilliant? Isn't it something which could happen to all of us? So he doesn't want him to be around because he remembers him when he was stupid in the class, or he didn't remember the poems, or he peed in his whatever. So it's better to get out of him. So there is something humanly so weak and so brilliant in the middle of the play, which is again, is so excitingly human and makes the whole picture so interesting, and it has so, it's like an incredible crystal. It has so many aspects, and there is also one character which is just for a moment, which is Dr. Rank. Dr. Rank, if you remember the play, Dr. Rank is the friend of Torvald who comes all the time, who is madly in love with Nora, madly in love. And this is a very beautiful love. We are seeing somebody who is old, who is culturally extremely fine, who understands this woman very beautifully, very beautifully. They have a very, very beautiful relationship, which is very, very playful. So they have a lot of how to say, exchange of two exceptional brains. So they have games. So Nora could have games with him, but she's never going to have with Torvald. Torvald's mental capacity is far away, different. So probably Torvald's capacity on the stock market is much better than Rank's, or on bank business. But this to understand Nora as a human being is very different. And the beautiful thing is, and this is again a very brave choice by a writer, this is something which is in my mind like O'Neill learned a great deal from Long Journey into the Night. So you have somebody here who is fatally ill. Fatally ill is something which usually is terribly risky for the stage or for the theater, because usually sort of sentimental, non-actable. So how could you play somebody who is dying? You can't do it. Ibsen is choosing a completely different artistic solution. So this is a mystery till the very end of the play. Even he doesn't know it. He has one scene when he says goodbye, thanks for the fire, that's what he says, and he disappears. And his disappearance is changing everything for the very end of the play. Very end, which is the famous breakup scene of the play. If you remember, the letter of Krogstad arrives, so the truth is out. And during the whole play, Nora is hoping, and she always says, is hoping there is something miraculous could happen. So let's think about what she means by miraculous. So what she means by miraculous is to have a husband who understands her, who have a husband who understands why she did what she did, to have somebody who understands the pressure of these 8 years, the pressure on her. So that's the miraculous. So the letter of the blackmail arrives, and the miraculous is not happening. Actually, what's happening is absolutely the opposite. And that's also, I think, from playwriting point of view, is one of the most exciting things. In the front of our eyes, Torvald, under this pressure, breaks completely and becomes a monster. Becomes a complete monster who is just thinking about his own future, his own career, and he puts all the blame on her. So let's be fair here, because now I realize I'm a little bit, I'm too much for Nora. Okay, let's be fair about this. So think about it, because if you know, in the theater, in directing or acting, it's always very important. You have to be also the lawyer of your own character. So you have to be behind your character. So even if you are performing Richard III, you must understand his motivation, and this is doubly true here. So what has happened to Thorvald and what's happening here? So far, he was living in heaven. He had the best marriage. He had the most wonderful little bird as a wife, and now suddenly he finds out it was a lie. And in his mind, he said, how she was able to lie to me for 8 years. So now we have to think about this. So we have to think about how we would react ourselves. So if we find out about our partner, about husband, is he or she was lying for 8 years is a lot of time. But I have to, also there is another question which we have to think about. The reason I'm saying is we have to think about, because now what I try to talk about is actually, this is the challenge, these are the problems when you direct a play. So these are the questions actually, when I'm working on the play, I usually use something like this, and I'm making my notes. I'm making my notes. And one of my notes is, for instance, here, is why they never talked about this for 8 years. So that's I think, is it not an obvious question? I think we have to. So if she is Nora, she would come to me as a friend, and I would say, so why you haven't talked about this for years? So Thorvald comes. So this is an obvious question. This is a human question here. And in my guess is they are both of them responsible what has happened here so far. So I was talking about the old production with the daughter of Karl Marx, and he was a devil, and she was a feminist angel. So probably this would not satisfy our artistic appetite today. So because we would like to get something deeper, something more human, something more truthful. So we have to think about, for a moment, what went wrong in this relationship. And I think which is very interesting is every relationship, every marriage, every relationship is a little bit a question of casting. So we are playing certain roles. Is it not true? So it's just a little bit. So, you know, when once I was directing the Doors House, and we started the game with my company, I said, you have to make a little note anytime when you are playing a little bit of Thorvald yourself. So I pick up the phone and I call my children. I said, hi guy, okay, what's going on? Okay, did you make your homework? Good. No, please don't go to the ice cream shop today. You already, no. Yes, and you go to bed. I put down the phone. I'm a wonderful father. So that's, I play a Thorvald. So this is one Thorvald. And the funny thing is, the girls, they did the same. The actresses, they did. So we realized we are all playing this. So the interesting thing is, there is a strange casting issue in this marriage. So he is clever, she is silly. He is responsible, she is irresponsible. The question is, and I think that's the truth, they made this casting together. So they accepted this. That was a part of the game. So it's a very, very strange thing. And if we are thinking about our life or our friend's life, that's easier. We see this how many times. So there is certain notes, certain remarks. So it's happening. Nowadays, especially when the people are walking with the cell phones on the street, so you could hear so many Torvalds and Noras on the street. You have to listen. So this is. So I made this together, and I think that's a very important thing. They made the mistakes together, and there is a very beautiful, a little poetic thing in the play, which I think is so beautiful. So we have another love story in the play, Krogstad and Mrs. Lindy. And this is like another mirror of human relationships. And they destroyed also the relationship long time ago. And they made the same mistakes. They were lying. They were lying, probably. So they were not honest. Okay, lying is not the opposite but we know. So if you have too many secrets, if you keep too many important things inside, this is something which completely affects the relationship of these people. And the reason, and Ibsen's judgment is, this is so risky. This is something which could shake completely the basic of the relationship. So in Ibsen's view, the whole institution of marriage actually in danger. The whole institution of family is in danger. Because this is the reason why he brings the 3 children on the stage. So the very end of the play, when she walks out and he stays behind, I always thought this is a terrible loss for both of them. I think both of them, they're losers. So they made so many mistakes during 8 years, step by step, and not noticing the risk. They're not noticing the ice is skinny and they could break. So they made so many mistakes, and finally, when she walks out, she is a loser. Not like in Mark's daughter's mind, but I think she is a loser. First of all, she wants to go back to the old place where she came from, which is a tiny village. For instance, in my country, I don't know how is it here, in my country, which is a very conservative, very small country, if you go home and you are a mother of 3 and you leave your husband in the big city and you go back to a tiny village, I think your life would be a hell. The local people, they completely despise you. Probably they call you a whore, they call you, you left your children behind, you left your husband. So the reason I'm just telling, so I don't see her, the future of her as somebody, so I don't see her as a hero who is walking. I see her as somebody who doesn't know where to go. So she doesn't have a good choice. So I think that's tragic. That's terrible for us. That this is something which really breaks my heart. Not the bang of the door, but thinking about her. And also I don't see him taking care of the three child. The interesting thing in the whole play, he doesn't have a scene with the children. It's again an artistic thing. So that's Ibsen's choice. They don't have a scene together. So he doesn't have a connection to the children. So he is the other loser. And of course, the life and the fate of the children is in terrible danger. Okay? So that was the first part. That was about Boris House. And thank you very much.
Shall we leave the chairs? Last over you.
I am whatever.
Okay. It's just coming up to 7 o'clock. Thank you so much, Laszlo. I'm sure we've lots of questions. I can throw one in to begin with. And unfortunately, it's coming from my area of work. But you talk very much about the demand of playing this balance between humour in Ibsen and the tragic, and you talked about McGuinness and how he seems to have an instinct for Ibsen. What about the actor? What do you look for in an actor, Laszlo? We've got lots of young actors here and directors. What are you looking for? What are the challenges, do you think, for an actor in playing Ibsen?
Yes. Thank you. This is probably I'm not able to how to say. So I'm not able to give you a recipe how you are looking for an actor. What I could tell you is probably the most subjective thing how myself I am thinking about casting. And you know this very well because you worked with me on casting.
I just thought everybody else might be interested.
So the casting, of course we all know, this is the most sensitive thing in the rehearsal process. Because if you make mistakes with the casting, you're not able to do a good production. That's simply the fact. And simply the fact. So this is a very, very important part of the process. But the other thing is, which is also very important to say, there are several directors, they're not very good about casting. And that's a fact. And one of the reasons sometimes, of course, so one of the challenges is, you have a producer, and the producer comes to you and they would like you to hire very famous people. Because famous people, they sell very well, you put them there and the box office is working. Box office is maybe working, but those house is a little bit more tricky. So those house probably is not going to work. So to be famous is not enough. Of course, there are some famous people, they are brilliant, and they could do this play, but not too many. So in my mind, casting have you thought about casting your own parents? So I know it, but I'm not joking. I'm very serious. So I think casting it means you, first of all, you have to understand the characters completely. So you remember how you knew your parents, how you remember how you knew her smell, her hair when she got waken up, her hair when she went out and she was pretty, when she was sad, so everything about her. So, and of course, her soul, her brain, her habits, so the whole person. And the same thing about, probably about your father. So you have, you possess a knowledge which is full, which is a complete knowledge. And the next thing is, so you possess this knowledge. So let's consider we have this knowledge about Nora and Torvald, so everything. So we understand very clearly what kind of everything about them, like about our parents. And now you need the actor and the actress who could play your father and your mommy. You start, probably you need an incredibly sensitive search, and also you need this incredibly sensitive ability to analyze the actor as a human being. So not just a performer. The soul of the actor, a lot of things. A lot of things. The sensuousness of the actor, the spirit of the actor, the style. So body and soul. So you need an understanding, and finally, when you have this thing, you say, him. And after you say, no, he's not good. He's too fat, he's too vulgar, he's not. So you have to go, you go over, and finally, you're getting closer. So this is a very, and in my mind, the process should be as sensitive, as careful as casting our parents.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you very much. I think that your analysis of those houses is definitely the best analysis I have heard or read or anything. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Sacha. Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, because you did mention a while back, but because the time is so cruel here, I just want to know in a nutshell, why is that a second play that you're choosing? What is in that play that attracts you? As I understand,
yes,
the attraction between the couple.
Yes.
You illuminated that so well. What is in Wild Duck that attracts you as a director?
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you asked this, because anyhow I wanted to talk about this. So that's a very good excuse. So there is 5 years.
That's what I learned to do here.
Thank you. So 5 years between the two plays. Wild Duck is later, a little bit later. The other thing, just do you know where Ibsen wrote The Doll's House? It's just funny, I think. It's just interesting. He wrote it in Amalfi and Sorrento. So he was sitting in the Hotel Majesty, the most beautiful balcony overlooking the blue sea, and he wrote this incredibly detailed, strange, sad, beautiful, passionate play. That's poetry. So that's something which we don't know about the soul of the poet. So the White Duck. The White Duck is 5 years later, and yes, honestly, I think one of the most exciting and one of the most beautiful play of the whole literature ever. The problem and the topic of the White Duck is even how to say, as interesting as the Doll's House, because the topic of the White Duck is what the German calls, there's a German word, I don't know what is an English one for it, the German word is Lebenslüge. I try to translate it, is like lie of life. And that's the topic of the White Duck. So everybody in White Duck has a secret and has a lie. They all lie. They all lie like we lie in life. So they don't know they're lying. They just lie. But they don't know about it, so they just lie. The only person who doesn't lie in the white duck is the child, is Hedwig. So they kill her. She dies at the very end of the play. The only person who is not a liar. So the people in the white duck, so we see a family. The family of a photographer who is an artist, Hjalmar, who is an artist, or not artist, but he's very artistic, who has a wonderful, beautiful wife. They have a wonderful, beautiful little daughter. So everything is nice, beautiful. They're not rich, they're sort of poor, and they live like in the 60s, 70s, the intellectuals, they lived very much together. It was like a communa. I don't know, you have this here. So they lived together, very close to each other. They walked over, so if somebody was thirsty, they went over, they opened the fridge, they had the beer, they drank it. So it was a very free kind of thing. They all lived together. That's the way how they live in the white duck. So all these people, they live together. On the surface, is very, very happy. And an old friend comes to visit. This is the best friend of our photographer, Hjalmar. His name is Gregers. And who is the son of the rich man. And he comes back. And he is the maniac of telling the truth. This is, I always found this is in my country, this is one of the biggest problems. In my country, we always have somebody who wants to tell us the truth. And we Hungarians, we are so happy without knowing the truth. So this is, we just adore not knowing the truth. That's us. So if we have some, I don't know how it's in Ireland, but so we don't want to hear the truth. We are as happy as we are. The problem is there is somebody arrives who is morally above us, and it says, no, this is not good for you. And they so that's happening, and Hjalmar, because that's a childhood friend, and they were so close, so he tries to be like him. It's very difficult for him. It's very difficult for him. And he's also one of these guys, we know these people very well from our life. This is like our playwright friends, so this is like our, even movie director friends. You remember the movie director friend who comes to you and says, oh, so a year later, 2 years later, he comes again. He's a little bit older, shabbier. He smells like alcohol. But he says, couple of years later. So it goes on. The whole life goes on. So this is very much him. So Hjalmar is working on a big invention. And nobody dares to ask about what kind of invention. But all the time when he works on the invention, he says, yeah, trust me, it's going to be important. So the family is proud on him. The little daughter adores him. So the friend arrives, and the friend starts asking unpleasant questions. And that puts him under the pressure. But they live quite well. So they have beer, they have ham, they have etc. But there is something strange about this well-being. And as the friend starts asking the questions, we find out many, many years ago, 15 years ago, she was the lover of the friend's father. So as a very young girl, like she was a maid in the house, she was 17 or 18, and they slept together. But now she's a wonderful wife, she's a great mother, She holds together the family. She's a wonderful woman. And I love her. She has one little secret, a little shadow in her past when she was young. So I don't know whether we have the moral right to blame her what she did when she was 17. So that's a very tricky question. So what's happening in the play? Somehow we're starting understanding this little girl is maybe the daughter of the rich man, of the father. And somehow we start understanding that there's a little money coming sometimes to the household, a little bit more money from the rich man every month. But nobody ever asks any questions. So you realize this is like Door's house. So they live happily, they have beer, they have a little sausage, they have a little butter, they have a little bread. And nobody asks ever where the money comes from. And when the moralist friend arrives and he starts asking questions about things that happened 16, 17 years ago, the whole happy life of the family starts collapsing. And there is one element, another element of the play which is absolutely fantastic, is the white duck and the whole playing area what they have. So they have a little bird in this strange house, and they have a little attic for the white duck, and they have rabbits there, they have chickens there. It sounds very, very strange. It is. It's strange. Because these grown-up people, these poor, loser, grown-up people, they have one fun. They go into this attic, and they're playing, this is a forest. So imagine, here we are in a very concrete building. So they have something like this as an attic, and after they go on the floor, and they're shooting, and they are playing, hunting, whatever. So it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous for us, and it's hilarious in the play. But for them, it's a source of happiness, because they're playing like children. So when first time I came into Ireland, my very, very first trip, and I read so much previously about Ireland and Dublin and whatever, so I was supposed to come to the Abbey. So I arrived, and it was very exciting to see Dublin in the evening. So my plane arrived in time, it was 9 o'clock. I was driven to Dublin, I arrived into the city, it was like 9:45. So I expected tons of people on the streets and the pubs, people drinking beer. The whole city was empty, absolutely empty. So my car was driven through the city. I was so disappointed. So everything what I read about Irish temperament, how much people they love life. So what's going on here? I'm telling you what was going on. Manchester United was playing Liverpool. So the whole country was inside and watching the game. So this is something what you need very strongly to understand the white duck. So when they go there and they start playing, they don't remember the problems, they don't remember anything. So like Manchester United playing Liverpool, they're playing in the attic and they're playing with the white duck. So these are the elements of this incredibly exciting, and that's again a very, very beautifully written play, which is 60% of the play is almost hilariously funny, but after it completely devastates you, because as the play and as the parents, they kill the child, because the living child is evidence she had an affair. So that's an evidence that that is in the court terms. So this is something which proves they had a guilty life before. So if she dies, the evidence is disappearing. And after, they could go to the cemetery and they could cry. So they could play the next role. So this is why I think this is one of the greatest play ever written.